for അവിടുന്ന് മണ്ണിറങ്ങണമെങ്കിൽ എന്നോട്
Hey everyone, it's Sam, and welcome back to the 911 Nonsense podcast. To stay in the loop, learn about upcoming guests, and join in the conversations with the Noon community, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And hey, if you like what you hear in this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world to us. Sam, known online as ER Nurse Sam, opens up about her path through emergency nursing, content creation, and surviving unimaginable personal trauma. From critical cases in the ER to rebuilding a life for her children, Sam's story is one of strength, advocacy, and purpose. This is more than just a nursing story. It's about the power of speaking up and starting over. Let's get started. Hey guys, are you looking for a top-notch first aid kit? Look no further than Jump Medic. Owned by a seasoned paramedic with over a decade of EMS experience, their kits are user-friendly and packed with essential supplies. From the most popular Pro Gen 2 to the compact hardshell kit, they've got you covered. You can even customize your own kit with the Build-A-Bag option. Enter the code NOON10, N-O-O-N, the number 10, and enjoy 10% off your order. Free U.S. shipping, and everything is HSA FSA approved. Visit jumpmedic.com and follow at JumpMedicUSA on Instagram. Stay prepared with Jump Medic. Sam, I'm so excited to have you on today's Noon episode. I've been watching your stuff for quite some time, and everybody's going to get to hear how excited I am because I'm normally a pretty chill person, but today I'm super excited to have you on. So thank you so much for joining us on the 911 Nonsense podcast. How are you today?
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm doing good. Just figuring out new life, new location.
Yeah, especially in that Houston heat that you've got over there. And then I think you said that you're having a storm right now currently. Is that correct?
Yes, it is like a real bad just summer thunderstorm. So there's probably going to be some like rolling thunder in the background.
That's awesome. Can I go ahead and get a quick introduction, Sam?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Sam. Most people might know me as ER Nurse Sam on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. I have been a nurse for over 5 years now, and I work as an emergency department nurse, and I've worked as a house supervisor in a critical access hospital setting as well. I love what I do. I love nursing in general. I think there's probably a huge part of me that will always stay at the bedside to some degree, but yeah.
That's good. We definitely need more people who stay bedside. How do you feel about the people? There's a lot of nurses and a lot of EMTs that are coming in, EMTs, paramedics, all of the likes, that are coming in and leaving the field or leaving bedside within 5 years, oftentimes shorter than that. How do you feel about that?
I get it. Like it's hard what we do. Being at the bedside is a really difficult thing. And if you need to leave the bedside, I support it 110%. At the end of the day, this is a career, this is a job, this is what you do. But if it no longer aligns with what you need out of life, chase whatever it is that you need to do, even if that means stepping away from the bedside.
Sure, great advice. And do you think that there's something that we can change or make better to keep these people at bedside?
Oh, I mean, of course, like you're always going to have your things that drive people away. Like violence in the workplace is one of the biggest things that I can think of. But there's this tone, this undercurrent of any healthcare staff that work at the bedside as being undervalued, underappreciated. And I understand that. And I think if there's ways that we can learn how to combat that, both the workplace violence and actually making your staff feel appreciated and valued. And I think that would drive a lot of people to end up staying in the bedside.
I agree with that. Is workplace violence something that you've personally dealt with?
Yeah. So I was actually a new grad whenever I experienced my first round of workplace violence. It was a patient that was ended up needing to be 5 and 2'd, and we had the whole thing. Security was there at the bedside. We were putting them in 4-point restraints. We were doing the sedative medications, and somehow, some way, somebody's hand slipped and patient had gotten out of one of the restraints and just clocked me. And I saw stars for a little bit, but I ended up pressing charges on that person, and that person did have to face the repercussions of their actions. And that was just one of the experiences that I've had. There were a couple of other that actually did go to court, and same thing. They ended up facing consequences for their actions. But I had a really big supportive group of like preceptor nurses whenever I first started nursing. And their belief was you absolutely 100% have every right to protect yourself and to allow for people who assault you, because that is what it is at the end of the day. You are being assaulted in your workplace, for them to face the repercussions of those actions. And they kind of hammered that into me. And that's something that I hope I have been passing on to my students who come through and my new preceptees and things like that. But yeah, it's unfortunately something that I think we all kind of experience to varying degrees these days. And I wish that wasn't the case, but here we are.
Here we are. Yeah, no, and I'm glad to hear that you had that support and that you're also pushing that support on the people that you're training. That's fantastic because in an area where we're a little more rural, right, where I come
Mm-hmm.
from, a lot of the time when we're trying to push charges, we've had some pushback. And I think it's gotten a little bit better over the last few years. But there were times where I've gotten punched, or one of my coworkers have also gotten punched, and they don't do anything against that person, right? They just stay in restraints until they're, it's called MTF, right? Metabolized to freedom, which means that they've just cleared out whatever's in their system and they can ambulate and walk of their own accord out of the ER. And that's really unfortunate. So I'm glad to hear that you were having that support. That's fantastic. What really made you get into medicine? What was your drive to become a nurse?
Yeah. So I actually wanted to go to medical school. I wanted to be a pediatric surgeon from like the time, like as far back as I can remember. And I was originally chasing that down, and I went to school. My first two degrees that I got were biological sciences and chemistry. And I did the whole med school applications, took my MCAT, did a couple of years of applying. And I hit this crossroads in my life where I ended up pregnant with my first son and was like, okay, I need a job now. And as much as I would love to have kept applying, it just wasn't feasible for that point in my life. And through my pregnancy with my firstborn son, I had tons of difficulties. I had a massive subchorionic hemorrhage early on at 18 weeks. At 25 weeks, I ended up in preterm labor. I was on the mag drips, all the things, getting the steroids. I stayed a week and a half that time, discharged out on nicardipine, and ended up vasodilating myself and passed out at home. So I ended up back in the emergency
Jeez.
or in the OB emergency. And then they cut me again because I was in labor that time as well. And then finally I pre-prommed at 30 weeks and had to be in the hospital until I delivered. And so I spent like a month and a half antepartum with all of my different visits that I had. And I realized during that time, like, don't get me wrong, I love my docs. I love my docs so much. And they have a different level of difficulty that they have to deal with and chart against, and different tasks that are expected of them. But I noticed during my stay that it was my nurses. It was my nurses that were holding my hand. It was my nurses that were explaining the game plan. It was my nurses that were talking me through medicine. It was my nurses that were there whenever I brought my son into the world. It was them that were rocks and steadfast and helped me through it. And so it was at that time that I was like, okay, I think this is really what I want to do. And I put my mind to it. That summer, I took like the one last class that I had to take for my prereqs for nursing school, I think it was microbiology. Ended up doing well in that, and then I was accepted that year for my BSN program. And I was still working as a medical scribe for a local emergency department at the time. Loved it, learned so much. I worked there with them for 7 years. And I thought that that was where my love for emergency medicine really kind of grew. And I started in the emergency department, fresh as a new grad, right out of my BSN program. And the rest is history. Here I am.
That's amazing. And it seems almost like kismet that you were able to shift into that nursing role so quickly to get into the nursing program. So that's fantastic. Are there any regrets? Do you kind of wish that you had gone to med school, or are you pretty solid with where you're at?
I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. I mean, I think I miss the education side of things just because I miss learning, but there is always chances for you to learn and grow your career in nursing. And so while I miss the like sit down school education side of things, I don't really have any regrets. It's been the greatest thing for me and my boys and our little family. I've been able to provide a life for them and a life for myself, and I have I will never have any regrets about that. So,
That's amazing. And what a great story, and what a great like take on all of it. Life throws so many things at us, and the best thing you can do is roll with the punches, right? Just keep going with it. Keep going with it and don't quit. This is the biggest thing, right? Don't give up on what you're doing. And you may have shifted your goals, but you got to where you needed to be, and it sounds like you love where you're at.
yeah.
That's awesome. What can you tell me like what your favorite nursing story is? What's your most passionate story?
Yeah. So this is going to be one that I think I'll carry with me for the rest of my nursing career. I was very young in my nursing. Like, I think I had just gotten off orientation, and I was thrown into a trauma bay, or like a recess bay. And it was a super, super sick suicide attempt. So it was a polypharm overdose. It was a bunch of extended medications, extended release medications, like your depression medications, things like that. And it was tons of medicine. I mean, it was your like 300 plus tablets of medicine had been taken.
So this was like a legit attempt.
Yes. And it was from the get go, from the second that the person rolled into the recess bay, like we knew we were going to be fighting against time, essentially. So we did all the things that poison control recommends, you know, reversal agents and charcoal and through the NG and all of the things. And super labile pressures the entire time. We were throwing on drips after drips after drips. Ultimately, like we got to this point where we needed to RSI and go ahead and go for it. Like we dropped our GCS to the point where we needed to tube them. And so we went ahead and RSI'd the patient. But this entire time, I mean, it's hours that I'm with them, talking with them, getting them through it, telling them, you know, even whenever their GCS wasn't the greatest, I'm telling them, we're doing this. We're going to get you through this. We're going to do this medication now. This is what it is. Like, I'm fighting for you. Keep fighting for me. And we RSI'd, got the patient stable. By the time they were upstairs to the unit, I think there was like 8, maybe 10 drips on this patient. And that was it.
So you were the primary nurse on this patient, right?
Yeah. And this was at a point where staffing was maybe not the greatest. And I was the nurse for this patient. So there wasn't like a float nurse, there wasn't a secondary that I had. So I'm charting, I have a tech with me who was a rock star. It was one of our medics who just rocked it out and helped so much. But just working this patient.
I think it's easy to forget how hard that can be for ER nurses, right? Because this is an ICU level patient, right? They're on multiple drips. They're intubated at this point, so they have a vent rolling. And you not only have just this one patient, you likely have between 4 and 5 other patients, unless it's a slow night, who knows? But you have several other patients where an ICU nurse might only have 1 or 2 patients who are this sick.
Oh, yeah. It was this particular night. I remember bouncing back and forth between that bay and our other bay, one of our other bays, because there was another like level 2 trauma that had come in. And so I'm primary on this level 2 trauma, also resuscitating this suicide attempt. And I mean, it was a crazy, crazy shift, anyways. But this patient was by far one of the sickest patients I've ever taken care of. I mean, just every 2 seconds, I'm titrating drips. Every 2 seconds, I'm having to talk with the doc about something else that's happening, going on. Like now we're starting to seize this, that, and the other. And like a lot of the times, you have these super critical patients and you get them upstairs to the unit and you don't hear what happens. Like there's very little follow through usually. And like, sure, you have a really close relationship with your docs, and a lot of the times they can share things about how the patient's doing if you have that opportunity and if you have that chance. But sometimes you're just so busy, start to end of shift, and you don't see that doc for weeks later. You don't get the follow through. And that was commonly the case, is you would take care of super, super sick patients and you would never know the outcome on those patients. And so a couple weeks go by from me taking care of this patient, and I kind of like, forget about it, let it go out of my mind. And I was at the grocery store and I'm like pushing my kids in the buggy down the cart, and I hear, "Hi!" And I like panic and turn around and look around. And I see this person who's like just bowed up at the end of the aisleway, like locked eyes with me, and goes, "Hi, don't move." And I'm like a little panicked,
Yeah,
right?
understandably.
And this person comes barreling up to me. And it's not until they are like a couple feet away from me that I'm like, oh my God. And it's this person. And it was months. It wasn't weeks. It was definitely months later, but like long, long forgotten about that case. But it's my patient. It's my suicide attempt patient. And they gave me the biggest hug and like held me at arm's length. And they were like, "I remember you. You told me to keep fighting. And here I am. And thank you so much." And that was that moment that I was like, oh, like, okay, this is why we do what we do. This is why we push through the hard shifts and we take care of the critical messes that we take care of, because at the end of the day, it's a person. And I couldn't help but think, like, I was part of a team who helped save that person's life. And we sat and we talked for a while, and their life seemed like it had gotten much, much better than where it was the first time that I ran into them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? I can see you're lit up and you're glowing right now.
Yeah, it is. It's wild. Like, when you graduate from school, you're this young 20 something year old, and you don't like, you don't really conceptualize that you have these people's lives in your hands until you do, until you're made aware of it. And um, it's kind of this incredible feeling knowing that you're a part of this amazing team who really does help save people's lives. And it's an honor. And I think it's like I have a sense of pride in my skills that I possess. And I don't know, I'm just thankful that I've been given this chance to do what I do.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're doing it. You're definitely one of the right people to be in the position of doing it. So thank you for sharing that. I know that sometimes sharing can be hard. And as we know, nursing and EMS can have incredible ups, but it can also have incredible downs. Has there ever been a time where you might have considered leaving the career or had something that just has really bothered you personally?
Oh man. I mean, like you, a lot of them. Um, but I think one story that sticks out to me, again, this was earlier in my nursing career. So I had been off of orientation for a while and I kind of got like catapulted into the trauma nursing side of things, just with staffing with what we had, and turns out like I was kind of good at it. Um, we I noticed like I would get excited for traumas and be pumped up for traumas. Like the gorier, the better. The nastier, the better. The gnarliest the mechanism, the better. And I started to get into this like mindset of like being excited for sick traumas without even realizing or being aware that like I had had this mind shift, right? But we get this call for a 15-year-old trauma arrest. And I remember sitting in the bay, we're all getting ready, we're setting up, and like having this undercurrent of excitement go through the bay, not just with myself, but like with everybody, which I would argue that there has to be some level of excitement or readiness before your patient gets there. But like it was just different. I don't really know how to put words to it. It was just different with me and my soul. And I'm ready for this and ready for this trauma to come in. And trauma rolls in, and there's brain matter. And obviously, not a good prognosis from that. Shortly thereafter, patient codes. And it's not until we're bringing back family and the screams and cries and everything that it hits me that this is a person, this is a child, their life is gone, this family is forever changed. And that case, like singularly that case, rocked me to my core. And I had to like take time and step back, and I was not okay for a little while after that, because like the screams of a mom who just lost her child is something that you never forget. But that was the first case that made me snap out of this mindset that you don't always have to be a trauma junkie. Like these are people, your patients are people. And it just caused a shift and a pivot in the way that I take care of my patients. And I think that that's something that still sits with me these days, that like it made me realize that your sick patients aren't just a cool case. Your sick patients aren't just an opportunity for you to learn. Your sick patients are people. And you're there to care for that person and their family if they have them. So I've just kind of pivoted from then on.
Why do you think that that case very specifically changed your mindset? Do you think that like was it your first PEDS code, or was it the first time hearing a mother scream like that, or what do you think snapped for you in that moment?
I think it was coming to terms with the fact that I was so excited to see something cool, something gnarly, something traumatic prior to that person getting there, and then just being smacked in the face with the reality of the situation. Like I had had peds codes beforehand that hurt, and I had had, horrific family traumas that hurt, but nothing quite snapped me out of it and like back to reality, I guess, as that entire situation did. And I guess it was just like the undercurrent of excitement in the room, the like we were joking around with each other, not about the patient coming in, but just like laughing like you do on a job.
I would agree that that is a level of like prep, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're depending on the size of the hospital and then depending on how or what kind of staff you have. When we're running a trauma, you have two techs, two nurses, several doctors that could be emergency doctors and then trauma doctors. So you could have in a trauma room getting ready for your level one trauma that's coming in anywhere between like 4 and 10 to 15 people in a room, right? And you amp each other up. And I don't want people to construe that as like, that's really rude, but this is how we prep. We're getting ourselves ready to see this really gnarly or oftentimes grossly disgusting like bone sticking out or brain matter in this case or
Mhm.
even a cardiac arrest. Like this is us coming together as a team to get ready to function well as a team.
Yeah, yeah. Like I agree. It's needed. You need to have that level of like, I am on the same plane as the people who are in this bay with me because we're about to be fighting together for this person that's coming.
Yes.
And I don't know, like, I guess I had always just been able to compartmentalize better. And I want to clarify my orientation in my ER was 6 months.
Oh, wow.
We did 2 months of day shift, 2 months of meds, and 2 months of nights before you were released on nights. And this was, of course, pre-COVID, but we or like right at the start of COVID, and which like also what a time to start nursing.
Uh-huh.
but we did like I had learned the art of compartmentalizing, I guess, and like had basically finished every shift as like, okay, well that's that and that's done, and let's like check that box and put it away, and we're gonna tuck it away. And this was the first time that I had walked away and I had not been able to fit all of my emotions into its neat little packed box and put it away on a shelf. And I think that's part of it too, is the reality of what we do on a daily basis kind of hit me in the face too.
And how were you able to release that? How were you able to get yourself better into a much better mental space to go back to work the next day?
I mean, so like you all have your coping mechanisms, right? And I highly recommend figuring out what is a healthy one for you. It's one of the first things that I always tell my new preceptees is figure out what works for you, but make sure that it's a healthy thing. But for me, very shortly after this case, I developed a 24-hour rule. And I have lived by that since I started it. And it is held fast and true to me. And it's a way of compartmentalizing, but also not, or at least not in my mind. Basically, I give myself 24 hours from whatever bad case. If you say, like, God forbid, I make a medication error, or um, I miss something, my my patient has a poor outcome because I missed something, or whatever have you. You have a really horrific, gut wrenching case. You give yourself 24 hours. And in that 24 hours, you sit with what you did, you honor it, you acknowledge it. But at the end of that 24 hours, you check it. And then you walk away from it. Because I know myself and I'll sit and I'll fester on things. And I learned I can't do that either. So giving myself 24 hours to really just sit with it and be mad about it if I need to be mad about it, be sad, beat myself up if that's what I need to do. But then I check it and I move myself on because there's always going to be different cases. There's always going to be other people who need my help. There's always going to be something else in my career where they will need my attention, they will need my presence, they will need my focus. And if I'm worried about or fixated on something that had happened previously, I'm not giving that patient my all, and they deserve my all.
I agree. And 24 hours, that's some people could probably think that that's quite the amount of time. It can be too long or too short sometimes, depending on how you're looking at it, right? What prompted the 24 hours?
I don't know. I think I just kind of like came up with it. But basically, the way that I think about it is if you have a awful, awful traumatic event within one of your shifts, you're going home, you're going to sleep, or if you're one of the people who stays up when you go home and doing things around the house and then going to sleep, like you have very little time from the point of you getting home to the point of you getting some sleep to waking up and then starting your shift the next day. But that wasn't time for you to process. You were busy getting your life together. You didn't really think about it. You really didn't let yourself sit in it. So you let yourself sit in it for a couple more hours at the start of your shift. By the time your next shift is to the point where you had whatever bad outcome or not great thing happen, you're probably enthralled in your work and you're doing your thing with your other patients. So they deserve your all. And so you let it go. You give yourself your 24 hours, you move it on, you pack it away. A lot of times, is it like really 24 hours? No, probably not, but it's pretty darn close, I'd say.
Yeah, that's awesome. If I get like angry or upset, I give myself 2 minutes to fester on it and then I have to let it go because you just need that time. And I've gotten really good in the last few years of like, my first reaction is just to send out a kind of snarky email, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I tell myself, like, don't send an email mad, don't send a text message mad or upset. Like, calm yourself down, get your shit
Yeah.
together, and then do it, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's very similar. 24 hours, I think, for something as traumatic as some of the things that we've seen, I think is a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And I think if you're not giving yourself that time, you're setting yourself up for failure. So
Yeah.
do what you need to do for you, whether that's 2 minutes or 24 hours or
Yeah.
48 hours or a week,
Mm-hmm.
do what you need to do, but also don't continue to fester on it, right? Don't keep sitting on it for months. If you need the help, get the help, right?
Yes. Like the old saying goes, whatever you bury grows. And so if you're burying something, it's just going to sit there and it's going to grow. And you don't need to do that to yourself, not in our line of work.
Yeah, no, that's a great saying. That's a great saying. I hadn't heard that one, but that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think that we're seeing that more and more with PTSD, right? Like if you're just shoving it down or you're compartmentalizing, it's eventually you're going to fill that box and that box is going to overflow and then it's all going to come out all at the same time. And we don't want that. Unless you're in therapy and you're talking about it, then yes, it's okay. But if it's not, then it can cause troubles at home, and we want to avoid that. Um, one of the things, and one of the better things that you're known for is content creation. You do these really funny skits where you're acting as a nurse, as a patient, and as a tech a lot of the time. What got you started into that?
Um, I honestly don't even know. But like my mom. So when I first started TikTok, it was my mom who was like, you should do this. Only her motives were like different in the beginning because she wanted me to be a part of her like MLM company and sell MLM things through TikTok. But once I posted a nursing video and it just took off, I told her, I was like, I feel like maybe I could do something. She's like, well, you have enough stories for it. And so I was like, well, I'd have to figure out a way where I can like tell these stories, but still be respectful of my patients, respect HIPAA, this, that, and the other. And she was like, well, like find ways to change it, come up with your own like stories, your own way to tell it. And so through talking to her, I came up with the idea of Tales from Triage. And it was Nurse Tina, who's your triage nurse, and it has like other characters. Dylan, who was an EMT who I worked with, who's now a medic, who is one of the most incredible people ever. Um, like had to be in there, had to have his stories in there. And then some of the stories from some of the other amazing people who I've worked with over the years just kind of came to be too. And it just became this way for me to like honor some of the most insane crap that we've ever seen, but do so while honoring my friends who I see this stuff with.
That's awesome. What a great way of doing it. I love that you named your character Tina and it's Triage Tina. Like, that's fantastic.
What's really funny is like early in the beginning, everybody thought my name was Tina,
Yeah.
which is fair. I introduced myself as, hi, my name's Tina. I'm going to be your triage nurse today. And so for a really long time, nobody knew my name was Sam. They just thought that was my like account name for whatever reason.
I'll be honest, I thought it was Tina when I was searching for you. I was looking for Tina.
And so through it all, like I wasn't expecting it to be as big of a hit as it was. And I have still tons and tons of stories that I could tell. I mean, I worked at a level 2 trauma center for years, many, many nights in triage in a row. There's lots of stories.
That's so awesome. I do it seriously. Like, your stuff is really funny and it's so true.
Thank
So I'm
you.
looking forward to more content from you when you're willing to share. One of your stories though, like the farmer one, right? We always ask, did the farmer drive themselves or did the wife make them come in? Is such an accurate statement.
Yeah. Or did you stop your work before you came on in, or did you
Yes.
finish building the fence?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you finish or did you come in? We had this guy. We had this guy who was also a farmer, and he had a pickup truck, and he had to cut some limbs off of a tree. So he climbed up a ladder in the back of his pickup truck to cut off the limbs of his tree and ended up falling. And he didn't just break his ankle, right? Like he like tore the foot from the tib fib.
Oh,
He was a transfer. So the facility that took him didn't take his boot off. We didn't
mhm,
take his boot off until he got to the trauma center, and it was just full of blood
mhm.
and his like he's just chilling, right? He's not
Yeah.
complaining of any pain. He's just like, well, it's a little uncomfortable, but it's not bad. And we took his boot off and his foot came off too. It was pretty gnarly, man. Like, so you just can't make that shit up, dude.
Or it's like your diabetic patients that come in, I don't know, I can't feel anything anyways because I've got the neuropathy and the diabetes, and then they go and take off their socks and their
Yeah.
toes fall off. And
Or,
you're like,
or there's maggots crawling around everywhere. Yeah. Yeah, dude, you can't make that up. It's nuts. Some of the stuff we see is actually really insane.
yeah.
I worked at the 4th of July in the trauma center this year, and that was one of the first years I've worked in the ER setting for 4th of July, and that day was fucking nuts. Like seriously nuts. It did not stop from the time I got on, and I'm on night shift. Didn't stop from the time I got on to the time I got off in the morning. I'm sure you know, like right now too is when all of the baby doctors are coming out of schooling and they're coming out and doing their clinicals and doing their first
Mhm.
rotations in the ER. And we had a young doctor that came out to wrap the head of a GSW patient. And I was standing next to them getting IV access, and the the main doctor asked the young doctor to wrap the head with some ace bandages so that they could go up to OR, and the baby doctor started gagging. I was like, you better get used to it. We're here. Like this. Please don't throw up on the patient.
Like, I can get you an
Yeah.
emesis bag.
And if I can't, just turn your head a little bit to the right. You'll be all right. Keep
Yep,
going.
yep, yep.
Welcome to the real world.
Yes.
So in the last year, you've actually had to almost completely stop your content creation and posting. Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, no, I don't mind sharing at all. Oh man, it is such a like in-depth story. I don't even know where to begin. Um, okay, so hot on the heels of my mother passing away, right? Which is super unexpected. My mom had a VFib arrest while she was sitting at home watching TV with my dad. Like no previous cardiac symptoms, nothing, no history to indicate it. Just one of those really wild things that happen. And so I am processing and grieving and trying my best to allow myself to grieve, but still knowing that I wanted to come back to social media eventually. And I'm not gonna lie, social media has been great for my family. It's been a different form of revenue that is very, very helpful whenever you're a single mom. And at that time, I had been having 60-40% custody with my ex-husband. And I would work 6 night shifts in a row, and then I would have my kids for 8 days. And it was working out fine. It was working out great. I get home from my mom's memorial service. I've been home for a couple of days, and I get a phone call from my ex-husband's ex-wife, which try and stay with me because I know it's a little complicated. Um, and my ex-husband's ex-wife and I did not get along. There should have been no reason for her to call me, and she was married to him first before I was. So we didn't have the greatest relationship, this, that, and the other. She had a daughter with my ex-husband that I raised for 6.5 years while I was with my ex-husband. And I get a call from her, and it is late at night. And I don't answer because she and I aren't close, but then I get a text message from her, and it says, "The safety and well-being of your children rely on you answering my phone call."
Ugh, what a like just a scary
Ring,
phrase to
ring.
receive. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So I immediately hop on the phone and call her, and I say, "Hey, what's going on?" And she said, "I just received emergency custody granted by CPS in the state and the county of my daughter. I am worried about your sons. Are they with you?" And I said, "Yeah, they're here with me, like what's going on?" And she launches into telling me how her daughter was abused at the hands of my ex-husband. And the abuse was so incredibly graphic and just gut-wrenching. So essentially what had happened was my stepdaughter had been kind of acting out and was struggling with her father and I having divorced. And so she had gotten kind of into a wrong crowd, if you will. But she ended up giving herself a stick and poke tattoo. And she came home with the stick and poke tattoo. And my ex-husband's response to this, mind you, he was a flight medic. He worked in medicine. He knew what he was doing was wrong. Or, I can't speak for him, but his solution was to take a Dremel and sand her flesh off where the tattoo was. And this took hours. And my sons had to sit on the couch and listen to their sister scream for help while all of this was happening. And they remember this. They were 4 and 6 at the time that this happened. And come to find out through all of this and through the separation and through the kids being removed from the home, this was not the only abuse that occurred. There were tons of other things. I very clearly remember having the boys come home and both of them saying, "My ears hurt, my ears hurt, my ears hurt." And okay, well, it's summertime. Maybe there's just an ear infection. And I would take them to the doctors and we would have their ears looked at and their ears would look fine. But whenever they would pull on them for traction to get better view, they would come undone and lose it. Come to find out, it is because he was grabbing them and picking them up and pulling them and holding them up by their ears. And that's just one of the very, very, very many things that have come out, both in the forensic child investigation through CPS that was done, and just the boys as they remember things and things that they endured have started to come out. So through all of that, CPS was involved, and I have a very, very different belief about child protective services now, having been through what I have been through on this side of things versus just solely being a first responder and having to report on that side of things and being a mandatory reporter. The investigation itself took about 6 months for them to finally close it and say that it was founded, say that abuse did occur in this home, and for us to settle our custody things. That took about another year. And then on top of all of that, he had a criminal hearing that was taking place. And it was finally July of 2024 that he was put into jail for felony child abuse. But during all of that time, while all of this is taking place, while we're having to have meetings with CPS, while we're having random home visits and court hearing after court hearing, and I'm being there and supporting my stepdaughter and her mother and their PTSD that they experience and are going through, I'm also front row and center to now having 100% custody of the boys, which thank goodness, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. But it comes with its own growing pains, right? I had to figure out how to provide childcare for them whenever I hadn't needed the childcare because they were with their father whenever I was working. And then all of that aside, my boys started experiencing signs of anxiety and PTSD. And I mean, like, to see your own kids head shy whenever you're around you, like if you move too fast around them and they flinch, like all of these different things that I had been blind to was now seeing and now picking up on. I needed to step away from social media so that I could be present and be there for them and help them through it and just kind of like heal and recover. And it took a year for us to finally be in a spot where we were okay and healed enough to be okay in our day-to-day lives. And for me to be in a spot where I felt like I could be funny and share myself again, because it was just so much easier being closed off to the microscope and the lens of social media. But we're finally in a place where we're better, especially now that we're states away and in Houston. And it was a lot. It was a really, really long, hard year. And it's not without difficulties now. I mean, we still have moments where, like my youngest, he's 6 now. And just the other day, he said something that he remembered that just like is gut wrenching. Like, oh, yeah, do you remember that one time that I ran away from daddy's house because I didn't want to be there anymore? I'm like, no, what do you mean? And come to find out, he had escaped from his home because he didn't want to be there with the level of abuse that he was enduring. It's wild, but that's kind of where I was and why I stepped away for about a year.
Yeah, that's rough. And thank you so much for sharing that, Sam. You are beautiful. And I'm so, so proud of you for recognizing the level of dedication that your family needed, and not just your family, but your extended, whether you liked her at the time or not, that extended family that you essentially took in. And that is amazing. That is amazing. In all of this process, your mindset has now changed and your goals have changed. What are your new goals?
So I have been made so violently aware that there is so much child abuse that goes on, just totally unrecognized. And I am bringing that into my own personal mission. I'm hoping to partner with a couple of local different organizations and charities that help to partner with and help those who have experienced child abuse, and or those that are experiencing the secondhand effects of child abuse, like PTSD, things like that. And I haven't decided on which organizations or charities I'm going to be working with yet, but I am hoping to share those with everybody as soon as I do. And um, I also just kind of want to take time to remind everybody that, like, when we sign up for what we do, we sign up to be a mandatory reporter. And it was because of a mandatory reporter at my daughter's school that reported the abuse that she had been experiencing that my children are now safe. And I will never be able to put into words how thankful I am for that person. So take what we do seriously and know that when you are taking that oath to be a mandatory reporter, it means something, and you can help alter the lives of a lot of those children around you that you're coming into contact with.
And that goes for everyone and anyone in the healthcare field, right? EMTs, paramedics, nurses, techs, CT techs, respiratory therapists, everybody. Everybody is now a mandatory reporter. It is better to report on something that you're not sure of than to not report and something happen to that children or that adult in an APS, right? Adult
Yeah.
Protective Services circumstance. Like,
Mhm.
don't be afraid.
Exactly. One of the CPS workers that we encountered was, she was so amazing. And she said, I would much rather be able to go out and close a case on somebody than never know that a case should have been opened in the first place. So I encourage those who are in the position of mandatory reporting, if it doesn't feel right, report it. And with that, I have had some people who have said, "Oh no, you don't need to report that. That's not right. Like, it is what it is." If it is not sitting well with you in your gut and you know that it is not right, it doesn't matter what your physician is saying, what your superior is saying, whomever have you. It is your duty to report. And so please, please, please do so.
That's correct. And Sam, I just want to give you the opportunity to speak about anything that you feel that we haven't talked about or to shout anybody out that you'd like to shout out.
Yeah. I had some of the most incredible preceptors, and I wouldn't be where I am here today without them. So, to anybody who taught me as a sweet little baby nurse, I just want to say thank you first and foremost. I want to say thank you to you for allowing me to come on here and share my story. And just thank you to everybody who's kind of been following along on this crazy journey that I've had on social media and following along in my life. It means a whole bunch to me. So thank you.
And where can we find you, Sam?
So you can find me on TikTok as ER Nurse Sam. You can find me on Instagram as ER _Nurse Sam, and then on Facebook as ER Nurse Sam as well.
Awesome. And I just want to tell you again, I really I've never met you in person, but I am so, so proud of you and proud of where you are now, proud of who you've become, and proud of who you will be in the future with all of your future endeavors. If you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out. And I've appreciated you being on the Noon podcast today. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you so much.
I hope you have a good day.
Thank you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show and want to show your support, be sure to check out the Noon merch store on Bonfire. Find the link in the description below. Also, if you have any guest suggestions or if you're interested in being a guest on Noon yourself, visit the website at www.samspursuit.com to get in touch.